between these two teams. There's a lot of resentment, a lot of... Obviously, with any derby, the closeness geographically makes a big difference, right? It's people who live in the same boroughs, people who mix together, and two teams who, until recently, it wasn't as one-sided as the Turin derby, but it was fairly one-sided. I think Arsenal were definitely the dominant team in North London, and until recently, it has unfortunately switched. Now, I've said I'm going to try and be impartial, but I can't do that 100% of the time. So unfortunately, it's switched, and now recently more Tottenham have started to pick up the wins. Tottenham have started to show that maybe there is a sea change. But the history of this derby is what really fascinates me, and I find quite funny. Tottenham fans will find quite annoying. So, originally, back in the 1887, when Arsenal were founded, they were a South London team. They were called Dial Square, but they realised that in South London there was too much competition for fans and they were not getting enough numbers. You had the likes of Chelsea, you had kind of Crystal Palace, there's a lot of teams, Charlton around South London. So they decided they were going to move to North London. Now, what they did was they moved within a mile of the only other team in North London, Tottenham. Now, this obviously upset Tottenham, and the kind of rivalry was founded there. But what really, really cemented these teams as bitter rivals was in 1919, so after the First World War, they had started the league again. And in the second division, Tottenham finished second, whilst Arsenal finished fifth. And when they were deciding who was to be promoted that year, weirdly, they decided to promote fifth place Arsenal above second place Tottenham. Now, obviously, right. Now, there's a few kind of schools of thought behind this. Obviously, the first one is money. Obviously, that's kind of someone paid somebody for Arsenal to get promoted. But Tottenham have always been quite a disliked club within London. And this goes back to when the Football League was first founded. There was two ideas of how they wanted to found the Football League. There was either the National League, or they wanted a North League and a Southern League. And Tottenham were the only team in London who voted for a Southern League rather than a National League. And this caused people to feel resentment against them, and it's the reason why they were kind of disliked. There might be other reasons that aren't as politically correct and maybe not as evidence-based, but the fact that they were historically a Jewish club means that there was a lot of resentment towards them, because England at that time wasn't the liberal bastion that people now pretend or like to think of it as around the Second World War. And people did feel a kind of resentment towards Jews in England as well. So these are all things that led to Tottenham not being liked. But anyway, the reason why Arsenal and Tottenham started as a derby was for this massive case of corruption that led to Arsenal being promoted. Now, obviously, I kind of say that with a wry smile on my face because I think it's quite funny. But if I was a Tottenham fan, it would piss me off no end. Of course, it's not fair.
Happened so many years ago.
But since then, Arsenal have never been relegated from the top division. It's like they were, at that stage, they bought their place in the top division. They didn't earn it. They bought their place in the top division. And that is against everything that sport stands for, right? And I say that as an Arsenal fan.
And that you stand for, too.
It's against everything that sport stands for. So I think, of course, that is awful/funny. But I want to focus on why I love this derby so much. It is always full of goals. There's 5-4s, 4-2s, 3-1s. Like, it's always close. It's a tightly contested competition. No matter what form one of the teams is in, you never know who's going to win it because there is that intensity on the pitch. It's famous for on-pitch fights, benches emptying. Like, I think even 2 years ago, Aaron Ramsey, which will always cement him in my heart, he started a fight with Dele Alli and then put a post on Instagram like after we won saying like sit down, he said, and stuff. Like, it's very 21st century, but they're now sniping at each other on Instagram and stuff. These players do not like each other, and I think that leads to the atmosphere around the game.
But so one question I get asked very often from people who have never been to Milan, they ask me, is there historically like a side of Milan that supports Inter and a side of Milan that supports AC Milan? no, it's not geographical. Historically, AC Milan were a bit more the working class team, and Inter Milan were the team of the people who actually were doing pretty well. What about Arsenal and Tottenham?
I think Arsenal have always seen themselves as quite a exceptional club and quite gentlemanly, and I think Arsenal, Islington as an area is like the Arsenal area is a very nice area of London, whereas Tottenham and this like the area of Tottenham is a bit rough and a bit more working class. So I think probably if you were going to label one of them working class and one of them middle class, I think Tottenham would probably be the working class team because the area that they're based in is a bit more kind of deprived maybe than where the Emirates and Highbury is.
And my second question is, so Inter and AC Milan, I see why it is very heated derby, Roma and Lazio, I see why. But so right now it's not really to rip on Tottenham, but Tottenham have not won much over the years. So, for example, Juventus and Torino, that derby doesn't even sound that great in Italy anymore. It's not an exciting derby usually because it's very one-sided. But with like Arsenal have won some things, but they haven't won that much to make it a one-way thing, right?
Yeah, I think the fact that the games are always so close is what makes the difference. I feel like even when Arsenal were in their pomp, the derby was never a guarantee. It was never a guarantee because even when we were winning Premier Leagues and winning titles, etc., you still, when it's North London Derby Day, you think, they could still turn up and do us here. And sometimes it would happen. Like the game was always close. I think that's why there's so much tension around it because it's never guaranteed. It's never guaranteed. And in the last 10 games, it's actually, this is the time when Tottenham have kind of taken the swing of it. So in the last 10, Tottenham have won 4. There's been, in the last 8, Tottenham have won 4, Arsenal have won 2, and there's been 2 draws. So there's definitely a kind of shift now where Tottenham are turning up more often than Arsenal in this game, which is very, very upsetting for me, but not for other people, of course. And this is kind of goes to why I'm nervous for this weekend. But before we get to this weekend, I want to talk about the 2 standout games for each team. So the most iconic moments or the most iconic derbies. I think I'm going to speak for Tottenham fans here, but I think the derby that they would hark back to as their best derby win was back in 1991. They had a team with Gascoigne, Lineker. This was a very good Tottenham team. And they faced Arsenal at Wembley in the FA Cup semi-final. And this final is famous, in the semi-final, this semi-final is famous for, in the 5th minute, Paul Gascoigne scores an absolute rocket of a free kick from 40 yards right into the top corner. Like when you hit a ball so straight, it doesn't move in the air. It doesn't spin. It just, like a cannon, just flies straight.
Yeah, those are the best ones.
So
you don't see
hard.
The ball spinning.
It's just like a bullet, top corner. And Tottenham went on that year to win the FA Cup. 1991, like everything weirdly in Tottenham's history, every time they've won something, it's been in a year that ended in 1, or in a season that ended in 1. And all the Tottenham fans are obviously getting excited this season. So, but that's all I only want to talk about that derby for 2 seconds. I'm trying to be impartial, but honestly, I don't really care that much about Arsenal getting knocked out in the semi-final. So I'm going to talk about Arsenal's most iconic fight.
This one is going to last 15 minutes.
Yeah, get comfortable, listeners, because there's a lot here. No, so Arsenal's most iconic win that I remember wasn't even a win. It was a 2-2 draw at White Hart Lane. Now, this was the season when Arsenal went unbeaten. The glory days that I watch on YouTube on repeat every couple of weeks. And we drew 2-2. So we were winning 2-1. And in the last minute, Jens Lehmann does something very Jens Lehmann-like and gives away a last-minute penalty. Robbie Keane slots it home. It's 2-2. Now, before the game, the Arsenal players had been told, do not celebrate on the pitch because Arsenal were going to win the league at White Hart Lane if they got a point. They were told, do not celebrate on the pitch, it will only cause trouble. So one of the Tottenham players walks up to Thierry Henry when they've equalised and says, like, something along the lines of, we stopped you winning the league. At that point, Thierry Henry goes, "Are you fucking stupid? We've just won the title at your ground," and then proceeds to dance on the pitch. Ashley Cole inflates an inflatable Premier League trophy, and the Arsenal fans had to stay in White Hart Lane for an extra hour before all the Tottenham fans left. And they had a party at White Hart Lane and someone unfurled a banner that said champion section, which is fucking brilliant. So, yeah, this was the iconic game. And nobody was, like, all the Arsenal players promise, they swear that before the game they weren't going to celebrate until the Tottenham players got mouthy and tried to show off that they'd rescued a point. But that's the last I'm going to do on it. I love that game. But this weekend, I feel like it's not going to be as happy an ending. So
before you dive into that, Mourinho, Arteta, one is delivering, the other one is still learning. What is Arteta missing at Arsenal at the moment, besides the key players to show up?
I think that's what he's missing. He's missing the team that he wants, and he's missing the ability to tailor tactics to what he has. He has a system in his head of how he wants to play. He had a quote during the week that said, "We can play 4-3-3. It's the tactic we can master, but we need 5 or 6 players to master it." Well, either it's the tactic you can master, or it's a tactic you need to grow to. It can't be both, right? You can't say it's the tactic we can master, but we need 5 or 6 players. No, the players you have at the moment can't master that tactic, right? So I think with him being an inexperienced manager, he's learning how to cut his cloth, so to speak, to be like, this is how I make these square pegs fit in these round holes, right?
While for Mourinho, it's a completely different situation. After a very rocky first 2 weeks of the season, now Tottenham seem to have found their form. They're looking deadly. They actually play pretty good football. They're an enjoyable team to watch. You don't think so?
I think they are very reactive.
Okay.
They're very reactive. I think, as Mourinho sides often are, it depends how the other team's playing. That doesn't, and I'm not trying to take away anything from Tottenham. I think they could win the league this year, but I don't think they have a team that could do it, and they have a manager that could do it.
I was just saying because I know that Carl and Max are in Minneapolis. They're pinning the moment, recording you say that.
I know it's going to be clipped. I know, but there's no point denying it. They do have a chance of winning the title, right? And they have a manager who, if anything, his strength is getting players to fit into a system. And if anything, his other strength is interrupting other people's systems. So I think this
beautifully
is
worded. Yeah. Sorry, keep going, but you just worded it beautifully. I think
this is something that as Arteta is an inexperienced manager coming into this, that's why it worries me, because Mourinho is so wily and he knows exactly what he's doing, and Arteta is still learning on the job. But it feels like I'm getting into excuses. They are a better team than us at the moment. They have better players than us at the moment. They are not a bigger club than us, no matter what they insist, but they do have a better team. They do have a better stadium, and at the moment, they have a better manager.
Would you sign for a draw over the weekend?
Mate, I would honestly bite your hand off for a draw.
Really?
Like, genuinely. I think when I was watching the game on Sunday, the main thought that came from my head is, how many are they going to put past us?
Would you sign for Tottenham 1, Arsenal 0?
No. We still I've got to go out with a bit of fight.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I just wanted to tease you, to push you a little bit.
I think the one thing we had was defensive stability until recently. Yeah. We need to go back to a back three. David Luiz in the back 2 is awful. Granit Xhaka in front of a back 4 is awful. We need to go back to a back 3. We had defensive stability there. Then maybe we can build from there. I think, especially with it being at Tottenham Stadium, thankfully there's no fans in yet. Maybe that will make a difference. I think, as I've said before, because the North London derby often doesn't depend on form and what states the team are in, then maybe we can get something. But I'm not holding my breath.
Are we watching the game together on Sunday?
I think we are. And Tommy, you're going to have to console me or get me incredibly drunk afterwards. It's going to be
Don't worry. I'm better at the second one than the first one.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm required to do to console you. Neither do I want to know, but I'm definitely good at it.
All you have to do is get YouTube highlights of the unbeaten season, just put it on, and I'll just sit and watch that. It's fine.